Now, I have the privilege of interviewing Gordon Nichol, who was a member of the 2nd 3rd Motor Ambulance Convoy, and he has some friends who I'll be visiting next week, particularly Bill Fitch in Queensland, and a guy named Arthur Lawler. Don't know if you remember Arthur.
Yes, I do.
And Gordon was also, apart from being with the Motor Ambulance Company, was with Air Force, which was a force of 7,000 allies who were sent to northern Thailand in about April 1943, and by general consensus are considered to be the group who had it hardest of all groups that went to Thailand. And Gordon, thank you for agreeing to this interview. Just a couple of things about the Motor Ambulance Company. When you were in Malaya, were you ever with that group of them who were right in the north of Malaya on the 7th and 8th of December 1941?
Well, I was at a place called Bukit Matajam, and I was sent up there by Major Dick, who was our CO, and he said that they were without a doctor, and if I would be agreeable, he'd send me up there to pick up any casualties and use my discretion as to whether they were brought back or treated there.
Yes.
So I stayed there until the arrival of an Indian doctor, and then by that time we were all evacuated back.
Yes.
And from then on it was a procession of digging slit trenches and
backing off.
Backing off all the time.
Yes. Now, if we go to the day in which the causeway was blown, I believe that it's generally conceded that the Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders were the last people across the causeway, but I'm led to believe by Bobby Shoebridge that in fact they were followed by a number of ambulances of the Motor Ambulance Company, of which you were one of the drivers.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Yes, we were with them. Actually, again, Major Dick said that they wanted a couple of ambulances up there to fight in the rearguard action, and he asked me would I go, and I said yes, I'd be prepared to go. I looked at it in this way, that I wasn't being brave or anything, but I looked at it in the light that we'd had it anyway, and we were all going to be wiped out, and so I thought to myself, well, what's the difference being here or there?
Yes.
So I went up with them, and he is right in saying that the ambulances came back with the force,
yes,
and after we got across it was blown up.
And I believe there's even a little bit more to it, in that Des Brennan, Captain Des Brennan, was the guy that actually stopped the blowing of the causeway for a little while to let the ambulances get across.
Well, I don't know about that. But Des Brennan was instrumental in me going to the 2nd 3rd Motor Ambulance Convoy.
Was he really?
Yeah. Des Brennan, I think he, well, up until a few years ago, he was still in practice up in Burwood.
Yes. Well, he's passed away now.
He's passed away,
yes, yes.
Oh.
Yeah, only in the last couple of years.
Go on.
Yeah, Bobby Shoebridge has, used to have, well, he still has contact with his widow, Eunice,
on
a regular basis. Now, you were chosen. How's the word for that? How come you got into the Air Force and were sent up to?
Well, we were told that. First of all, my name was selected to go.
Yes.
And everybody thought, how lucky is he to be going? Because we were told that we were going to a land where there was plenty of food, and the food was getting short in Singapore. The chaps were having difficulty in bringing it in, and that up on this camp we were going to up north, they said, there was going to be plenty of food, and we could take musical instruments and everything like that, because there'd be plenty of entertainment and life was going to be very much better.
Yes.
So I was considered very lucky to be going on it.
Yes.
And my unit, we were living in tents at that time down on the roadway and near Roberts Barracks, and so they gave me a bit of a send-off actually.
Yes, yes.
How lucky was I?
How lucky, indeed. So
and it was very funny because the chap that I was going with, a mate of mine, I said to him, "You can sit near the window in the train, and then in the morning, and I'll sit near the window in the afternoon."
Yes.
And when we got there, of course, they backed in these great big
steel trucks.
Steel trucks,
Yeah.
rice fans.
Yeah.
And so that put an end to that.
Yes.
And there was 28 in each group, and they said, the Japs said, 28 men all into one carriage, one van. And anyway, Bruce Hunt, I'm pretty sure it was Bruce Hunt, said, "I am not going to ask my men to get in there." Through the interpreter he said this. He said, "I'm not going to ask my men to get in there because it's just impossible with all our gear, and there's just not room." So the Jap, through the interpreter again, gave orders to fix bonets to his guard.
Yes.
We got in.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Now, you mentioned the interpreter. Did you have Major Cyril Wild with you at that stage or later?
He was later. He was in a different part of the train.
Yes.
But Major Wild was there.
Yeah.
And I saw him with burns on his legs. And I believe that he was told by a Japanese guard to stand in the fire because he'd done something wrong.
Yes.
And he was made to stand in the fire and got himself burnt.
Yeah. Now the conditions of the trip up has been recounted in many stories, and I think you've got more interesting things for us to tell us than that. You know, and it was just over 4 nights, 5 days, sporadic stops, sporadic meals. But then when you got to Ban Pong, what happened?
We got to Ban Pong and we all thought, marvellous, we're there. And everything is going to be right from now on. But instead of that, we had about a 14 or 15 mile march to this camp. We didn't know this was on, and we were saying, you know, how are we going to complete this march without everybody dying? And when we got there, the first thing they bunged on was a search. They searched all our gear, and then we learnt that that was only the start of the march, which was going to last for 17 nights, I think it was, and was going to start the next night, and we'd go on and have not march during the day because it was too hot. But then the following night we'd continue on and march another leg of the route up there.
Yes. Now, during the march up, did you ever come across or become familiar with a person by the name of Ringer Edwards?
No, I can't remember him.
Who were the doctors that you marched up with?
Well, Bruce Hunt was with me on the train.
Yes.
In the same carriage. And he organised all the men. There was so little room that he organised for the very sick men to lie down for part of the time. And the other people could sit down, and then some people had to stand up.
Yes.
And I was one of the unfortunate ones, I suppose, that I was always pretty fit by comparison. And I had to stand up most of the time. And then, of course, there was no toilets. And you mentioned about the food. I think we had 8 meals, 2 a day, I think.
Now, if I mention the names of any of the doctors, we had Bon Rogers, do you remember him?
I don't remember him.
Colin, Vic Brand?
No, I don't remember him.
Colin Jutner?
I remember him.